interested in D&D, you've probably heard about Spelljammer. It's the D&D space setting, but using fantasy to justify the reality of space travel. This video, I'll discuss the D&D campaign setting known as Spelljammer, and grab your space canoe, we're going sailing. But first, this video is sponsored by Hero Forge. Hero Forge is your stop to create custom 3D miniatures for your tabletop adventures. 2.0 has now released, and with this update comes color miniatures, more model options, and overall improvements. Hero Forge has the classic races for D&D, but some great unusual ones such as Ravenfolk, Merfolk, and my favorite, Frogfolk. You can customize their gear, their weapons or instruments, the platform they stand on, their pose, and you can even put rings on them. Get your hero printed and mailed to you using regular or premium plastic or their new color plastic. Check them out today at heroforge.com, and thanks again, Hero Forge. Hello everybody, Jordan here, the PH is silent, and today we're answering the question, what's the deal with Spelljammer? This very odd campaign setting for Dungeons & Dragons came out in 1989 along with a series of novels and comics. The setting was literally pitched as D&D in space. And let's be honest, who isn't a little bit interested in what that could mean? However, it isn't a science fiction role-playing game using D&D mechanics. This was instead a setting that kept the fantasy of D&D but allowed the characters to magically fly to the stars. Instead of pure science fiction, the setting has its own fantasy-based rules for space, gravity, air, and interplanetary travel. The setting heavily defined the Mind Flayer race as well as beholders, making it a dark and scary place in the D&D universe. In this video, I'll talk about the lore and history behind the Spelljammer campaign setting and the physics and magic of the setting. If you're curious, the Spelljammer box set is available from DriveThruRPG for $10 as a PDF, but also as print on demand. The box set is a great place to start with Spelljammer, and I reference it plenty in these videos. There's an affiliate link down below if you're interested. The name Spelljammer refers to a very specific spaceship in the D&D setting. However, it's kind of become a colloquial term for D&D spaceships. You might hear the term Mind Flayer Spelljammer, and technically that's incorrect, and Mind Flayers use a nautiloid ship. The name Spelljammer comes from windjammers, which were sailing ships of the late 19th century. As for Spelljammer, the name became a noun for a class of ships, the proper noun for the mythical Spelljammer itself, a unique ship found in the campaign setting, and a verb used for the act of moving through space. The ships of Spelljammer come in a variety of shapes and sizes, many unique to specific races. Mind Flayers, Beholders, Dwarves, Elves each have their unique ship style. The ship usually reflects the nature of the D&D race, but it should also be known that the right magic, tools, and information, anyone can pilot any space vessel in Spelljammer. Uniting other popular campaign settings, Spelljammer used the idea that all other D&D campaign settings are held in crystal spheres that exist in an interspatial fluid known as the phlogiston. I've always been saying phlogiston, but I recently found out it's phlogiston. The more you know. The term phlogiston is taken from an old scientific theory that postulated a fire-like element existed inside matter. Combustible material was thought to contain phlogiston, and it was released through burning. The phlogiston fluid in Spelljammer is very combustible, and there are rules around fire magic and how it affects the party. It's an infinite fog of swirling clouds, and the whole realm emits a tiny bit of light. There are dark regions with little information because, well, no one has returned. Because of its flammable nature, even the tiniest spark can set off a large explosion. If you cast a fire-based spell, it goes off instantaneously, centered on you, the caster. Its power is increased as if you cast it on the elemental plane of fire, which was an old rule from the Manual of Planes. In D&D 5e, you'll have to make up the rules yourself, but a critical hit fire spell centered on you, the player, sounds about right. Ships traveling the phlogiston douse their lamps and fly by the light of the rainbow ocean. It's impossible to bring phlogiston outside of the realm. It evaporates and disappears without a trace. Maps are scarce and unreliable, and many believe the crystal spheres move, bobbing around in the phlogiston. Hopefully you'll find your way and are not lost in this transitive plane forever. You might run out of air. Each D&D universe is housed in a crystal sphere. Each crystal sphere is a little bit different and vary in size. The vacuum of space inside a crystal sphere is called wild space. This is what you would consider just space in a traditional science fiction setting. These crystal spheres are made of a dark ceramic material that is unbreakable. Nothing, not even magic, is powerful enough to damage it. However, magic can be used to open a gateway through the sphere into the phlogiston, which allows ships to move from wild space into the phlogiston and then perhaps to another crystal sphere. Teleport or dimension door does work if you are close enough to the wall of the sphere. There are naturally occurring portals that open and close seemingly at random. These can be found with a second level divination spell, Locate Portal, or if you're a high level magic user, you can cast the 5th level spell, Create Portal, allowing you and your ship to enter into the phlogiston. These spells are unique to the Spelljammer campaign setting. Gravity and air work differently in Spelljammer. Everything, including your character, has what is called a gravity plane. This gravity plane isn't fully understood, but characters do know how it behaves. It's an invisible line that bisects most objects. The force that we would call gravity pulls in a specific direction of, and I quote, "that which is most convenient." End quote. On your Spelljammer ship, you can stand on the deck, and as the ship flies, banks flips upside down, you'll always be standing right side up. Funny enough, because the pull of the gravity plane is the same on top as it is down, you could stand on the bottom of the ship just fine. This is rarely done because characters in Spelljammer enjoy the idea of being right side up, and their spaceship design reflects that. Planets, because they are spherical, and asteroids too, have a central inward gravity point instead of a plane. So gravity remains the same all around its surface. Most planets have an atmosphere, not all, and come with breathable air, but again, not all. Your ship in Spelljammer has enough gravity that you can dip down into a planet and it will carry air with it back into space, forming an invisible bubble around the ship, allowing your characters to breathe in the cold darkness of wild space. Because your body has a gravity plane, even if you are thrown into space, you have a small bubble of air around you as well. Although it won't support life for very long, a humanoid-sized body drags enough air to last 2d20 turns. And a turn in old school D&D is 10 minutes. Your ship's air gravity capacity is relative to its size. Ships are measured in tons, and each ton represents 100 cubic yards of space. Thus, 1 ton equals 100 cubic yards, and that brings enough air to support 1 human-sized crew member for 4 to 8 months. A 30-ton frigate could support 30 crew members for 4 to 8 months, under normal circumstances. An interesting mechanic of Spelljammer is air quality. If you do some deep space travel, your air will go from fresh to fouled to deadly. The air will become humid and start to smell bad, and any attack rolls or ability checks for creatures that breathe have a -2 penalty. Deadly air is, well, deadly and cannot support humanoid life. You'd have to roll against poison every turn, and if you fail, you pass out. A second failure brings death. You'll need fresh air to succeed in Spelljammer, but you're in luck. Most trips take less than 4 months to complete, or there are planet stops along the way that allow you to dip into the atmosphere and refresh your air supply. There is even a first level cleric spell called Create Air that can help you with longer trips. However, divine magic for clerics is more difficult than arcane. Clerics and paladins are cut off from their deities if they leave their crystal sphere. For example, I'm a level 10 Goliath Death Cleric of Leviatar. I can get my spells from my deity all through realm space, which is the crystal shell of the Forgotten Realms, but the minute I leave, I'm cut off from my deity. I still retain the spells Leviatar has blessed me with. They are sealed in my mind, but once used, I cannot get them back. However, certain deities are in more than one crystal sphere, sometimes under the same name, and sometimes under a different one. You might be surprised that you can commune with Leviatar in another realm. However, in the phlogiston, you are 100% cut off. There were a few second level spells added to assist clerics, such as Contact Home Power. This allows the cleric to establish a link through the astral plane between themselves and their deity, thus able to replenish their spells. Another fancy cleric spell is Detect Powers, which can be used outside of a crystal shell and allows the cleric to learn if there are any friendly gods or similar powers that may recharge their spells. I've only scratched the surface. This is the beginning of a series on the Spelljammer campaign setting. If you're interested, subscribe as I'll release new videos every week. The next video will focus on navigating your ship and the hazards of wild space. Lots to cover, and I hope to show you what makes Spelljammer cool. Perhaps you'll run a Spelljammer game either with the AD&D rules or updated ones. I'll link the next video in the description and to a playlist once the whole series is done. Subscribe for more D&D lore and Spelljammer. Thank you, patrons. Let me know if you've run some Spelljammer and which adventure is an absolute must. I'll see you all in the next video.